So hi, thanks for everyone coming along. Yes, I work at Citizenme and I do an enormous different roles there. I've been shaping the product and marketing and delivering work. And but it was really, the start of all this was really kind of 3-4 years ago, working at GfK with Colin, that I was first inspired and influenced by the ideas that I'm going to talk to you about today, and the ideas that have started to shape Citizenme. And I distinctly remember downloading an app that allowed me to get some kind of control over some of my personal information and provide some kind of personal analytics on what that said about me. And I remember looking at that and thinking, wow, this is the future of market research. And I thought, and the great thing about working with Colin is that he's always up for a bit of a chinwag when it comes to data and technology trends. So I remember scuttling off down to his office and saying, look at this, this is great. This is the future of market research, it's the future. And he was equally enthusiastic and said, write a presentation for it, because I've got to do a presentation at this conference in a few weeks' time. I haven't got time to do it and I think you'd be great. I thought, okay, blimey. That was not expected. So I put together a presentation about a few things about people taking control of their personal information and being empowered with it, and getting some kind of value from the whole process. Oh, and at the end as well, I talked about why personalisation might not be so good for brand attachment as digital marketers initially thought. So I went off down to this event. It was an audience full of digital marketers and media types, and did this presentation, and it completely bombed. Everyone was like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, they didn't say that, but you could tell by the reaction in the audience. They kind of tipped their hat to, yeah, privacy is important and we should be considering that, but what? Give people their data and get them involved in the whole big data, analytics, personalization? Nah, you're crazy. But luckily, in those 3 years, the market has changed dramatically, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And I'll cover some of the big macro issues that have developed over the last few years and how that's impacted the data economy. I'm also going to talk about how a new economy has started to emerge, what I've called here the me economy. It's also known as the PIMS area, which is a horrible term that no one understands, but it stands for Personal Information Management Services. And then I'm going to talk about the relevance of this me economy to the market research world. And I believe that kind of 3 years ago, when I first saw that app and started talking to Colin about this, this is the future of market research. This is where market research is going. So these are trends I'm going to cover. The developments in ad tech and martech. So I'm going to take a broader look at marketing before I hone in on market research. Some regulation that's coming down the line. You might have heard of it, GDPR. Interestingly, who's heard of the GDPR here? Okay, not many people. All right. So I'll talk a little bit about that. The API economy, there's so much data about us out there for the services that we use, and the API economy is allowing us to pull that into one place and help us connect services up and move our data across different services and get better value from the digital services we use online. And the consumer and business sentiment in the world right now, not 3 years ago, which was very, very bad for my presentation. The data economy is structured in a certain way. Our data is stored in big data silos around the web, and our data bounces between these data silos and is largely sold by data brokers, and this creates an enormous sense of disconnection in the whole marketing process. It also creates a lot of security and data breaches because there's one single point of failure. I read all the time about data breaches online. I think the last one I read about was Yahoo just before Christmas, a big data breach there. But it massively has severe implications on how we build customer relationships in marketing, even customer relationships in market research. Here's an example. This is the ad tech industry. So if you want to get an ad in front of eyeballs, this is where it all bounces between. This is an enormous amount of different types of companies and companies within those areas. And so you publish an advert, it gets some kind of targeting attributed to it, so it goes through some kind of measurements and analytics, DMPs, SSPs, and it finally ends up in front of you on your desktop, mobile phone, somewhere. And this is causing the disconnection with advertising. Advertising had a horrible year last year, and people in the industry think this is crazy. And when you look at this, this is the marketing technology industry. So this is the advertising bit that you've just seen. Then there's content experience, social relationships, commerce and sales, and data. This is an enormous amount of companies that you've never heard of. From a consumer perspective, like we work in the industry, so we might have heard of some of these companies, but the everyday typical person won't have heard of many of these. But this is where your data is bouncing between through those different data silos, being bought and resold and repackaged. And by the time the final bit of content gets to you, sometimes it's either annoying because it's out of date. I had this at Christmas, trying to hide adverts on my laptop for stuff that I was trying to buy for my family. Really, really, really annoying. But you also get the creepiness factor as well. Like, why do things keep popping up when I looked at over here, but it's seen over here? All that stems from the way the data economy is structured. And so, if people in the industry think it's a bit crazy, then activists are certainly pushing back. Now you get crazy activists that are completely detached from reality. They are in their minority. But there are some really, really, really clued up activists that are educators, that are regulators, that are business people, that really know their stuff. And this is one person that I've had the pleasure of working with over the past year, and she agreed to put together a video for this and another talk that I'm doing around now. And she summed up in a couple of minutes what she thinks of the current state of the data economy. So let me just play this.
The other day a woman asked me, how come Facebook knows that my mother has Alzheimer's? I never told them. I asked her if she had been Googling Alzheimer's and if she has been on the homepage of the Alzheimer's Association. And she said yes. And I explained to her what is going on with third-party cookies. She had no idea and she freaked out. And that is what is happening now. 8 out of 10 consumers are worried about their privacy, and privacy is the right to control who knows what about you when. Consumers and citizens are realizing that we are paying too high a price for free. We are paying blindfolded with our data, and we are seeing a few companies getting richer and richer and richer on our data. And what are we actually gaining from this, apart from a free service? That is why we are seeing an increase in the use of ad blockers. More than 50% of millennials today are using ad blockers to get rid of those ads and to protect their privacy, to block third-party cookies, right? We are also seeing 1 out of 3 in Europe actually lying about their data, just like I'm doing. I have 4 different identities, and I'm teaching kids not to use their own name online before they understand what it is being a public person and how the tracking is going on. We need to regain digital trust. We can do that by using data ethics, as I describe in my new book, Data Ethics, the New Competitive Advantage. Companies need to help consumers opt in instead of having to opt out when they don't want to be part of this. And we also need to get something back. We need to understand what are we actually getting out of this. So you need to be much more transparent about that. Truly transparent. Thanks.
So Bettina is great. She's good to read, and she's a big advocate in digital rights for children. And I think it's a really important area. I mean, digital rights for adults is important, but for children it's really important because they're growing up in a world where they have no idea how to act and behave and what happens to their data. And she highlighted some really important points there. One of them is ad blocking. This was a report published in May last year. 500 million people have installed content blockers on their smartphones. That's in a maximum of 8 months, because if that was published May last year, it was only September last year that Apple allowed content blockers on their smartphones. Samsung quickly followed suit, but that's about 8 months. 500 million people have installed that. That's huge. The year before, the number was about 200 million on laptops and desktops. So last year, people really stuck it up to advertising. Basically, they didn't, like Pinelli talked about, they were getting creeped out. They're not getting the value from advertising that they currently want. And this is the key thing. Where is the value for the user in that data exchange? And businesses, especially last year, really started to wake up to this. Here's one example. This was actually very recently. You might have read about it. Medium, Silicon Valley company, started by Ev Williams, who founded Blogger, and then Twitter, and then founded Medium. Axed a part of his team that was developing a business model based on advertising revenues. And it's really interesting to hear what he says here. I'm going to read it out. It's clear that the broken system is ad-driven media on the internet. It simply doesn't serve people. In fact, it's not designed to. The vast majority of articles, videos, and other content we all consume on a daily basis is paid for, directly or indirectly, by corporations who are funding it in order to advance their own goals. And it is measured, amplified, and rewarded based on its ability to do that. Period. As a result, we get what we get. And it's getting worse. And this is a Silicon Valley publishing company the founder founded Twitter, that is based on advertising. These companies are starting to recognize that there has to be a much tighter and better value exchange in personal information. And it's a smart way to think, because changes are coming around now. We said at the end, who's heard of the GDPR? This is a massive piece of regulation that's coming through in the EU. This is be a massive upgrade to our data protection policies right now. And the key theme of it is to give consumers, as digital citizens, more rights. And there's two really important areas of this. One is consent. Consent will have to be gained on a case-by-case basis. So the common practice of collecting data and figuring out what I'm going to do with it later is practically going to be outlawed within the EU. The second thing is data portability. A key part of this is to give customers a copy of the data that you hold on them, and for that to be in a machine-readable and electronic format. This is a really important step because it provides transparency between the consumer and the business about information that is held by them. It also provides fluidity in the marketplace, where users can use their own data in other areas. And the risks of not complying with this are massive. 20 million pound fine, or 4% of global revenue, whichever is highest. It's a huge risk, and we're speaking to a lot of businesses right now who are trying to think of solutions that help them comply with the GDPR. So the fluidity I talked about in that data portability is key here as well. So for a while now, we've had this burgeoning API economy, and what this effectively means is that for digital services that you use online, you can connect them up. You'll probably have experienced this using social networks, so Facebook or Twitter. You can connect that to different services by authorizing a little button, and it says what information is being shared. That's the start of the API economy. But it's not just in social media it's happening, it's productivity apps, it's health apps, it's all sorts of different apps that you can authorize connections to. Now the UK is massively advanced in this area. and in two key areas. It's focused in on regulated industries of finance and energy. And in the finance world, there's some bigger things at play. There's the PSD2, which is European-wide standardisation of payments and transaction fees and data sharing. But in the UK, the CMA and the Open Banking Working Group have pushed forward this agenda for data sharing. The last report they put out said that they're going to have an MVP API available this quarter, which means, in layman's terms, that the transactional statement type information you get on your bank statement will be available for you in an electronic format to connect to other services. Now, that might sound a bit scary, but if you think about the innovation that's going on in the fintech area to help you better manage your money, that's a really exciting thing because your information is not locked within your bank. You can pull it into dashboards that help you to better manage your money. It also could be linked into services like Citizenme, who are very pro consumer services that help people get value from their information. And so that's banking. In energy, now energy might seem a lot less interesting, but actually it's fascinating. And we're doing a pilot with an energy company right now. And if you get hold of the high frequency smart meter data, there's loads you can infer from that. You can tell what devices that home is powering. You can find out when those devices are on the blink because they start using more energy. And interesting and slightly scary is they can see what you're watching on TV because each TV program has its own unique energy signature because it has it uses different amount of energy according to how much light the program uses over a time sequence, and so that can all be recoded and they can find out what you're watching on TV. Now the energy company we're working with realises that's a bit scary. But they recognise the value that's potentially in that information. And so they've decided to work with us because they see us as a good intermediary to give some of that information back to their customers and bring the customers into the value exchange. And so that is, for us, was a big validation of what we're starting to do in the world of personal information. And it's a really smart move from the energy company because consumer sentiment has been pretty persistent since I've been working in this area. I think I showed very similar stats in the presentation I did 3 years ago that bombed. And these things haven't really moved. There's a lack of distrust in the market. I think probably 3 years ago it was more along the lines of kind of government surveillance, but now it's very heavily focused on corporate surveillance. People are worried about what information people have, what businesses have on them, and so are more concerned about this. And actually, last night I found an Ipsos MORI report that showed very similar information, and that was very interesting because it looked at confidence levels on the internet as well, and people that were not confident using the internet or not confident in privacy policies and terms like that were much less likely to buy stuff with companies they didn't know, which has worrying consequences for the growth of the digital economy overall. And secondly, there's people want more control over who accesses their information and what they do with it. And why? Well, watch this. It's quite freaky.
Oh, hiya, can I help?
Hot chocolate.
What's the name?
Joelle.
What was the name?
Alex.
Alex. There you go, Johnny.
Cheers.
If you like our Facebook page, we give you a free hot drink and a free pastry.
We have a new like for Damien. Hey Carly, are you standing by?
Standing by. Hi there, can I help?
Yeah, I just liked your Facebook page.
Okay, I'll search Facebook now.
I'm searching Google.
Have a phone number.
I've got his email address.
Okay, Carly, are you ready?
For information on Damien.
Yep, I am.
Mother's maiden name is he banks with Carly, this is the girl coming in now with the blue scarf.
What's her name? Nicholas.
Nicola. His date of birth, 7th May. She lives at 38A.
Just be a couple of seconds.
2 children, age 4 and 6. Previous address. I've got the postcode.
Yep, got it. Damien, age 26 and a fitness instructor.
How do you know that?
Brody, who goes to UCL. Martin, who went to South Thames College. Assistant psychologist at Great Ormond Street.
How did you know?
That is... I don't really understand.
Oh, better?
You know I'm a Christian as well.
Oh, yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anna from Russia.
So it's a very enlightening video, I think, and this video is promoting security issues and awareness around information that might be available to you online if you've not got your privacy settings set right. And this is a direct risk for people, but there are more indirect risks as well that we don't necessarily see straight away. And this next one is really, really worrying. This is a story that was released towards the end of last year. It was a couple of journalists went online, placed an ad on Facebook and targeted it towards people that were looking to rent property in a certain area. And with that targeting on Facebook, they were able to exclude by race, and so they excluded people with African American, Asian American, and Latino kind of data on Facebook, which is because it was a test run by journalists, was kind of reported on and kind of given a bit of a high-profile buzz online. But obviously, I don't need to spell out this very severe implications of kind of like digital social cleansing in a way. It's an awful way to use personal information. And this is kind of reaching a zenith in a way, because we've talked about, or people have talked about, the risks of personalisation for a while now. I think Eli Pariser book Filterable was released about 3 or 4 years ago. And last year, I think a lot of people woke up to the implications of personalisation with the elections we had around Brexit and around the US elections. And it's commonly known now as the kind of social media echo chambers. And it's stuff that we can't see. I see a different internet to what you guys see, based on how stuff is personalised to me. And I don't necessarily have much control over that again. And stuff like this could be happening to me. But to be fair to Facebook, because those last two things were Facebook, it's not an anti-Facebook parade, Facebook are recognising some of the issues that they face with holding this personal information. They published a big report last year, and I know they're doing some ongoing work to try and figure out how to remedy this situation. And again, this is a huge signal to the market that big data media companies are really starting to wake up to the fact that they need to provide a safe place, as they say on here, for people to use the internet. But importantly, I'll read this last bit, they need to experience the full upside potential of using their own data for personal and social purposes. It's a win-win for individuals, society and business if this happens. This is a huge shift in mindset for big data companies. And no one ever talked about this 3 years ago. This is not even on anyone's agenda, but it's coming top of the agenda right now. And we saw a big change last year. So it's not just big companies that are recognising this. The problems that we just talked about, there's a whole raft of new innovation happening right now. And it's kind of been termed lots of different things, but I'm calling it today the me economy. Citizenme is one of those, but we're not alone. There's some very other high-profile startups, medium-sized businesses in this area. Miko, DigiMe, DataCube, People.io, and they're all operating in different spaces. Citizenme are focused on the market research space. People.io, for example, are focused on the digital advertising space. And what they're doing is they're helping people get value for their data and control and visibility and transparency over how that data is used in different areas, so market research and advertising. And the size of this market is potentially huge. consultancy based in London sized the market at £16.5 billion, and that's just in the UK alone. And that's a huge amount of money. It's a huge market size, and that's not just going to be driven by the small startups that I just showed you, but businesses, big businesses as well, like Facebook and Medium, who are starting to think in this different way. But the size of that market is nowhere near the size of the global market research industry. The global market research industry is worth 45 billion, I think, annually. And so that just kind of puts it into a bit of perspective for you. The market research industry is huge, and Citizenme believes, we can take some of the great things from the personal information market and some of the great things from the market research market and foster a new way forward. So I think this has huge relevance to market research, and the thing that I kind of realised all those years back chatting to Colin was that market research is the source data for the rest of the marketing wheel. If we get that wrong, then the rest of the marketing wheel doesn't perform as well either. We're the source data for a lot of business decisions, and we have to make sure that the data is right and the insights we're deriving from that data are accurate. And if we've got people opting out of advertising en masse, if we've got activists telling people to fake their information, if people aren't using Facebook and other social media outlets as much because of the coffee shop data to go video, then we start to face trouble with analysing digital data. And it's not just digital data that has those problems. Market research has serious problems, I think. The industry's worth $45 billion, but 56% of researchers believe the whole data collection process is broken. These stats are taken from Green Book Grit reports. It's the best I could find. And 23% of research buyers believe data quality will improve. That's a really small, low-level amount. I believe it's great that the market research has a personal data value exchange. If you think about doing a survey, you're going to get some kind of cash reward for that, but it's really poor. Typically, 50p for a 20-minute survey, it's not really worth doing, and then you have to accumulate 10 to 50 pounds of rewards before you can cash that all out. It's just a pretty poor value exchange. And the experience is not great either. We've been slow to move to mobile, and when surveys are on mobile, you kind of got grids and you're pinching in to try and hit the buttons, and it's just a bit of a bad experience. And we've not been that great at integrating multiple data sources, and this is a structural thing. It's not necessarily something that's wrong with the market research industry. It's just because data sources are stored within big silos, within big organisations, and getting that information into one place is bloody difficult. I've worked on projects that have tried to attempt it, and it's hard. Even if you get past the compliance officers, it's then hard to pull that together. And so there are big issues here. And so this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about Citizenme and how the way to solve some of these issues is to put the individual in the middle. You integrate data around the individual, and so the individual becomes the point of integration. And we give the information back to them. It's theirs. It's theirs to keep, and it's theirs to manage, it's theirs to delete, it's theirs to share, it's theirs to do what they like with. And these blobs here are a mixture of different types of data. So we've got good old-fashioned survey information and demographics, so we'll ask people their age and their gender, just like you would do in a survey. But then there's lots of digital information as well. So we'll pull in information from Facebook and from Twitter and from LinkedIn, pull in information from health kit information, so steps and things like that. There's loads of information from the device API that we pull in, types of apps that are used, the device, name, model, operator, that kind of information. And then we're very excited about this year because of the what I was talking about in the home and finance area, where that information is going to be given back to individuals as well, and we can integrate those APIs to our platform too. The third type of information, however, is largely here at the minute, but it will start to appear all around the chart. So we launched the app back in June, last year, and we launched it with a load of personal insights around psychographics. So you could connect up your different social media accounts, and you can see how your personality comes across on those social media accounts. And so we give personality traits, general happiness with life, political views, and it's all done through algorithms and machine learning. And that creates new data points that are of interest to our users, but then our users can also share that information back out with businesses in a market research way. And so when you start integrating data around the individual, when it's all in one place, then you can start to join the data dots. And so it's not just psychographics, you can start building on the insights you derived in the psychographics and start matching them with other things. And so this is something that we want to try and test out if we can do with the energy company we're working with and the pilot we're running. Can we identify a need for a new TV by looking at energy patterns? And can we infer the product preference using AI and machine learning? If we can't, we'll just ask a question. But that's some of the stuff we're starting to look at right now. And I also talked about injecting value. What is the value for the individual? And at the minute, we provide two forms of value. There's the insights that I talked about, and we've got big plans for the insights going forward. And there's also instant cash. So we've got a platform. We allow people to, or we allow businesses to publish data exchanges, which is a combination of survey questions plus the data that I showed in that blobogram a minute ago. And the value of that information is worth more on our platform than it would be on another panel, because there's more of that information, but also we give that money straight back to the individual and we pay it instantly into their PayPal account. And the way Citizenme makes their money is they charge a transaction fee for making that data exchange to the business. And so there's a bigger upside in terms of cash for the individual. And we've got big plans for the insights, and some of the early testing we've done with some of our users, they're talking about, well, I'd like this to be a kind of like a digital mirror. I'd like to see different sides of myself. I'd like to be able to track my behaviours and see impact on doing certain things, especially around New Year. Am I kind of changing my habits, that kind of information. And so we believe there's a lot of potential value that we can unlock in the whole insight side of our proposition. Now, the important thing, I talked a lot at the start about data silos, and this could be viewed as one big horrible data silo that you'd not want to put your data into, which is why we've carefully architected what we've done. And so we've decentralized data. We don't store any information. We're a data company, but the information that you have within the app is stored on your app. We don't know what it is. We have basically an empty data map. And that information is then backed up to a personal cloud on your phone, and so we don't see that. What we've been able to do is create some clever technology that allows us to do some really good audience selection using that data that then pushes the tile out to every device, and the device works out whether that project, that tile, that is relevant for that particular user, and then releases it on the app if it is. And so we can do good audience selection and good data exchange in a decentralized way. And it's a really important architectural thing for us. Otherwise, I don't think we would be able to do what we do, because we'd face huge security risks. I certainly wouldn't want to put my information in it, which would be telling. And we need to build trust with people. We need to help people feel that they're in control and that they trust the digital tools that they're using. And so, yeah, this is the self-service exchange that I was talking about. You select the data that you want, and the project gets published and pushed out to apps, and people respond on their phone. And the phone, or the mobile app, is designed to be a lot more user-friendly than some of the web-based surveys that I've certainly answered. And because people are exchanging information as well, there's less questions. So it shortens questionnaire time. So going back to kind of 3 years ago, and probably sooner than that as well, I really started to think about what is the purpose of market research. And when you do any kind of innovation, I did quite a lot of innovation research when I was at GfK. We always tended to kind of reduce the whole product, the whole brand, back down to its core purpose, and then innovate back out from there. And that's what we've tried to do with Citizenme. What is the purpose of market research? You might have your own opinions, but for me, market research, the market research industry is an independent intermediary that provides data and insights to businesses to help them make good decisions, and at the same time protect the privacy and data for the consumer. And if you think about that purpose, no other marketing discipline has that purpose, where they're protecting the data for the participant. And it's a really important thing for us to do good research. We've known that for a long time. And it's a really important thing to maintain. And what we've done with Citizenme is we've tried to take that purpose and build a platform around it where the data is around the individual. And we live in a world now where data is in all sorts of different places. You don't just collect data from a survey. You collect data from lots of places. And so we need a platform that recognises that pulls that information into one place and distributes it back out. And so that's what we've tried to do with Citizenme, and some of the reaction we're getting from projects we're starting to win is way more exciting than the presentation I did 3 years ago that dropped like a lead balloon. So hopefully this presentation isn't going to drop like a lead balloon, and there'll be some questions now. But that's what I've got to say.
Thanks, Ryan. Really interesting.